Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening if you're in the UK, which I am. Hello, my name is Dan Edge, and I am your host for this amazing panel this evening, as part of the Amazing Portland Film Festival. In today's panel, we will be talking to a combination of deaf and disabled performers, artists, creatives, and loads of wonderful people. And we'll be talking about how creators can make behind the scenes of films and TV and all those wondrous things more accessible to deaf and disabled performers and just artists in general. This is what we're going to be talking about. And today I'm going to be joined by an amazing, amazing panel. So I'm not going to waste any more time talking about myself, not for a little bit anyway, as I introduce them. So I'm not the only person on screen. But to my right, I'm not sure if they're on your right in terms of screens, I have one of our wondrous ASL interpreters. She's making sure that everybody can understand what I'm saying in the medium of sign language, which is amazing. Hello, Andrea. Nice to see you. But now, let's get on to our amazing panel. Firstly, I would like to introduce the amazing Tommy Jessup. So Tommy should hopefully appear on screen. There he is. Hello, Tommy. Nice to see you.
Yeah, hello there.
As well as Tommy, we have the amazing, let me pull everybody's names up because I've got them written down. We have the amazing James Ken Blackman. Come and join us, James. There you are.
Hey, what's going on? Thank you for having me.
Amazing. We also have the amazing Danny Murphy. There's Danny. Hi, Danny. Nice to see you. And finally, last but not least, we have the amazing Andy Cayley. Hopefully I pronounced his surname right. Did I get that right, Andy? Is it Cayley?
You did indeed. Thanks very much.
We're off to a winner. So this is our illustrious panel of amazing award winners, nominees, people that have been part of amazing, amazing projects. And we're going to talk to you about making the industry better, because that's what we're here to do. So, firstly, I'll introduce myself a little bit more now that everybody's on screen, just so you don't think I'm some strange British guy rambling into a camera. My name is Dan Edge. I am an actor, a professional wrestler. I am a vice chair of Equity's Deaf and Disabled Members Committee. For those of you that aren't aware, Equity is the UK version of SAG-AFTRA, or the equivalent of SAG-AFTRA. So I spend a lot of my time working with deaf and disabled performers, trying to make sure they're better represented on screens and on stages, but also making sure that the representation is of good quality and so on and so forth. So that's me in a nutshell. Tommy, tell us about your work in the industry. What do you do? Tell these people how amazing you are.
Okay. Well, quite recently, I've played a fighter, a murderer, a fisherman, a football fan, a thief, and a regular kid who had a girlfriend. And I've been thrown off a mountain, and I've also thrown a rapist out of a window, and I'm also a versatile actor who likes being able to play some strong characters with powerful or gentle emotions, and I also like to watch people and understand what makes them feel quite strong emotions.
Amazing. So Tommy is a tremendously talented actor, and to prove that point, he's given us his amazing 2-minute show reel to show you, including some of that amazing work he's just mentioned, the film The Fighter and so on. So if our wondrous tech bods could please play that video, I would very much appreciate it. Thank you.
want to fight, and I want to win.
Why?
Because I'm a fighter.
That's right. And again, give me a right. 1, 2. That's it, quicker. 1, 2. Sharpen up. 1, 2, roll. 1, 2, roll. That's it. 1, 2. There. 1, 2.
Away from your mouth and take your medication, okay? You need to take your medication, Sarah, okay?
Leave her. No.
Are you acting up?
You should stop doing what Mike tells you.
We're best mates, aren't we, Terry? Sorry, mate. There's a fly on you.
Who was in charge of the police, Terry? Can you remember that for me?
I will when they're hungry. You're not trouble, are you?
Have you got one?
Yeah. Just a tizzler thing. And I'm the king of the world! You fucking little... I could have been dead. Look, you hate me. You've always hated me.
That's not true.
And that's why you tried to kill me.
I didn't mean to push you. If you say anything,
Oh, well, go on then.
He's going to be just fine.
Georgia, what about your boyfriend?
I haven't got one.
I haven't got a girlfriend.
One day, eh? For both of us.
Hope so.
So there you go. That is the amazing work of Tommy Jessup.
Nicely done, Tommy.
As you can see, he's an amazingly talented actor, but he is not the only amazing talent we have on this panel. So now let me give some time to some more. Let's go from one actor to another, and I will talk about the amazing Danny Murphy. Couldn't remember your surname there, Danny. I apologize. The amazing Danny Murphy, who has over 15 million views across various social media platforms, has been on TV and won numerous awards. Danny, before I wax lyrical about you, please give yourself a better introduction by doing it yourself. Danny Murphy, everybody, tell us about your time in the industry. We can try and type. There we go. Yes, the interpreter will type for you. That's absolutely fine. So Danny is an actor in movies. Who is he? Yes. He grew up loving acting in movies, one of which was called Part of Lost.
Yes, I'm just saying.
He's always been interested in comedy and films in general, and he's learnt many different skills: dancing and acting,
Yes.
and many more. So the reason I've been reading that out is, sadly, we've been having technical issues, just to explain. So I'm reading out what Danny's interpreter is typing to me. But to give you a better example of Danny's work, he's also sent some amazing footage over. So rather than me reading some comments for a little while, let's watch some of Danny's amazing work so that you can all see it for yourselves. Wondrous tech person, please play the footage.
Will, Are you there? Will? Will, are you there? I need an interpreter.
What was that?
No.
Ah. Hey.
No. No. No.
So there you go. That was some of the amazing Danny's work there. Danny Murphy films, skits. I was watching some of his skits today. They were amazing and funny. I'm sure we can check them out after the panel and we'll give links and all those kind of amazing things. But now to another amazing actor, the amazing James Ken Blackman. Tell us about yourself, James.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Glad to be here today with all these other amazing artists. I am an actor living in Hollywood, California right now, beautiful LA. I've worked with artists like Beyonce, Katy Perry. I've done everything from feature films, short films, theater, and adding more things onto my resume as we go. I recently went behind the camera and produced a documentary called Sugar and Spade, yet to be released. But I'm always looking to add more skills and skill sets when it comes to in front of the camera, behind the camera, because I think you should just really fully be immersed in your craft and try to know everything about it. So that's me in a nutshell.
Amazing, amazing. That's you in a nutshell. So many talented people on this panel. And that also includes the amazing Andy Cayley. Andy, please tell us about yourself.
Sure. So thank you for having me. I'm based here in London and I am the head of acquisitions at a company called Bohemia Media, where we specifically focus on distributing stories that are about and made by those who are from underrepresented communities in mainstream media, including but not limited to people that identify as LGBTQ+, people of color, and people with disabilities. And I also run my own production company called Curious and Curiouser Pictures, which kind of has a similar sort of ethos, but in a producerial capacity. And these all come from a very personal space within my family. There are people that identify as LGBTQ+, there are people with disabilities, and there are people of color. So I believe that the work that everyone here is doing and the work that we're doing at Bohemia really does have an impact on audiences.
Oh, see, this is the amount of amazing talent we've got. And what I love about you being here, Andy, is as well as all these amazing actors, you can give us a different perspective because you're the other side of the process. So your information and knowledge is going to be invaluable in this just about an hour or so. We're already nearly 15 minutes in. Time flies when you're having fun. So it's going to be invaluable that you're here also. So, Tommy, the lovely Tommy Jessup, what we do is that your piece, it was on your show reel for those that were observant, but your piece Coming Down the Mountain was actually nominated for a BAFTA.
Yes.
The film was nominated for a BAFTA.
Yep.
So I bow to the BAFTA nominee in the room. There it goes. See? I have a question for you though, as an actor, Tommy. Did
Yep.
you find that after being in a BAFTA-nominated film, the roles that you were being offered and were going up for changed because all of a sudden you had those magic letters BAFTA in your work?
I think it changed really better, and I think it it all started from coming down a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Really, it's just an honour to be part of a BAFTA not a nominated film.
Definitely. And you know, for me, and I'm sure many disabled artists, the fact that you were in a BAFTA nominated project was huge, because it's not only testament to your talent but disabled talent throughout the world that, you know, we can be nominated for awards as well, and quite rightly should be. So
Yeah.
that's amazing.
And it also won some awards as well.
It did.
Even I have.
You've won some awards. Which awards have you won, Tommy? Come on, share with us.
Well, I must have won the Best Actor Awards and the Best Ensemble Award, and yes, and I must have won countless Best Actor Awards.
Your bookshelf must be getting very heavy from all those Best Actor awards, Tommy. That's all I'm going to say. Have you got a bookshelf big enough? This is the thing.
Well, I think my award
back home, because of course you're on set right now. That's how showbiz you are. You are live on set right now, joining us here in this conference. So that's how showbiz Tommy is, everybody. He's joining us on set. But of course, Tommy's not the only one to win awards, is he, Danny?
Yeah, I'm just saying.
You've won quite a few awards yourself, Danny.
Okay.
Is he? Danny's won 4 awards. He's won the Diana Award. The Star Development Award and others. See, winning so many awards on this panel, we've forgotten the names of them.
And
Star Award.
One other thing that I forgot to mention is I might have been to the Emmy Awards.
See, Tommy's even been to the Emmy Awards. I'm sat here in my office delivering this conference, and there's people that have been to the Emmy Awards. Why am
in New York?
In New York, of course.
Yes.
So, Andy, have you got any projects that have been nominated for awards that I don't know about?
I'm not going to say, do I have any awards? No, my bookshelf is unfortunately very empty of that. I can't compare my talents to that of Tommy and Danny here. But fortunately, we have worked on, at Bohemia, we've worked on projects that have won awards. I mean, our first film that we released, which we released back in July here in the UK, was called Clemency, which won the Grand Jury Prize at Sundance, and we released it here in the UK to fantastic reviews. So it's not on my bookshelf, but it's on a bookshelf somewhere, and that's as close to claiming to fame as I can get.
Why not? Go for it.
Okay.
What about you, James? Any awards?
No personal awards, but yeah, I've been part of projects that have won multiple awards. I was in Beyonce's Formation video, which won many awards for what it did. Obviously, right? Like so many people have seen it. It's got 250 million views so far, and climbing and counting. And that was a project that I was very, very proud to be a part of because it was one of the first like really big statements of the new Black Lives Matter movement, just kind of standing up for people of color and just really saying something directly to the world, you know. So in every way possible, I am super proud to have been a part of that.
Definitely, definitely. So basically, what I've done by asking that question is not go look how brilliant we are as talent on this panel, but gone look. There's deaf, disabled, people of color on this panel, and we're all been in amazing projects and talented, and we're talented people. And yet, as much as we are talented people, we're not as featured or as seen in the industry on a whole as we should be, in my humble opinion, and hopefully lots of you watching this panel. And in turn, one of the reasons this panel has been assembled is so that we can ask the questions, how do we make that happen more? And more so, how do we make it happen backstage before the productions are made, so that we see more deaf, disabled, and people of color on your screens, on your stages? That's what this panel is about. So the next question I'm going to ask to everybody, but we'll start with Tommy. So Tommy, are you ready?
Yeah.
If you could change one thing to make work more accessible or easier for you, either when it comes to auditions or being on set, so auditions themselves, or when you're filming, what's that one thing you would change to make work more accessible?
I reckon having more time.
Time.
Yes, time.
Is that?
There's enough time for me to get enough information from you and think about how the character is feeling.
So more preparation time.
Yeah.
I can totally get on board with that. I definitely think that the industry on a whole is a really fast moving industry.
Yeah.
But in turn, giving actors with impairments or not, and disabilities or not, extra time gives us a chance to give better performances, more rounded performances, so on and so forth. So I completely agree with you on that one, Tommy. What about you, James? What would be the one thing you would change?
Can we go back to that question again? What was the full question?
So if you could change one thing to make work more accessible or easier for you when it either came to auditions or on set, whichever the case may be, if you could change one thing on set or during the audition process or before the audition process, what would it be?
I would love to have a chance to talk to the writer of the piece that I'm performing, because so often the creative that's performing the piece interprets it differently than how the writer meant it to be, you know, and which is why sometimes we miss the mark. We need adjustments, this, that, and the other thing. So to just like really get into the mind and talk to the writer and see how they originally envisioned the character and what they meant for this character to mean to the piece as a whole would be amazing. You know, that would change my performance immensely. Because sometimes, you know, you read a piece and you have a lot of questions and you're not always able to get those questions answered. So you just have to make the answers yourself and just choose a path and go for it. And then hopefully maybe you'll get some of those answers get those answers on the other end, possibly. But when you're auditioning, a lot of the times, you never get those answers. You're like, I don't know what this character truly meant to this piece, and I don't think I ever will. And maybe until I see it finally made. And hopefully you book it, and then you can ask those questions. But that is definitely the main thing. I would love to just dive in more, just like Tommy said, like it'll help me understand the character better. And a lot of times with people of color, how we're written, it's to me, it's been just slightly off, because usually it's not a person of color writing the character. And so for the disabled community, I know that happens like all the time. It's the same thing, with my community as well. So if I could just do that, I would be golden.
Amazing. What about you, Danny? What's the one thing that if you could change it, what would it be?
Okay. Gary will be voicing for me right now, correct?
Amazing. Thank you, Gary.
Okay, good, great. So I believe that the deaf roles being represented for accessibility and having interpreters provided, or providing interpreters for accessibility for all deaf writers, just being very important for writers to portray deaf people in the community without providing misinformation. I believe that that's very important.
No, definitely. And I think, interpreters are definitely, having worked with lots of deaf talent over my career, something that people, whether it be, I don't think it's malicious, but they're often forgotten, and they shouldn't be. They shouldn't be, flat out, because if somebody can't communicate, then how are you going to create your best work? So what about you, Andy? You come from sorry, Danny wants to say something. Go ahead, Danny.
Yes, I agree. I forgot to add one more thing, that the crew, the cameramen and crew that are setting up the filming, following the script, and the actors, but the cameramen, when yelling cues on set, there needs to be tactile communication. There needs to be better accessibility if there's a cameraman behind me. Setting up some ground rules and logistics, if you will, on the set. So that can have wrong clout as well.
Definitely.
I've got one thing to add as well. In the audition process, don't speak too fast.
Don't speak too fast during an audition process. No, definitely.
And try to give too much information at once.
Definitely. Andy, you come at this from a different angle, because obviously you're not a performer. So in terms of access for you and your work, what would make it more accessible for you? Or in turn, what do you think you could do to make it accessible for performers like Tommy, like myself, like Danny, like James?
Well, I think everyone has pretty much hit the nail on the head, that whatever decision you're going to make for your project, if you're going to have a disabled character, and then you're going to be authentic in your representation of that, then you need to establish a thorough and open communication early enough, so that the person or the people who are starring in your project or working on your project, you understand what the requirements are, and you are specific understanding what their requirements are. It's now sort of at a point where it's not enough to take a broad brushstroke and assume that just because a person is in a wheelchair, then a ramp is all they're going to need. Every person is different, and therefore all the requirements are going to be different. And I think there's a lot of hesitancy in having an open discussion about that. I think because people are just worried about getting something wrong and offending someone. And the reality is you very well might get something wrong. And every sector of society is going to have militant people that are going to rip you to shreds about that. But that's not reflective of everyone you'll work with. And more importantly, the fear of being wrong shouldn't just bring the whole topic and communication to a close. As long as you don't keep making those same mistakes, then you don't need to be quite so hard in making them in the first place, as long as you're learning from them. But it's really important in terms of creating an accessible workplace that you establish what exactly the needs of your cast and crew are. Your impact really does have to match how good your intent was to begin with.
Indeed. And if I may sort of be a bit self-sanctimonious and add my 2 pence in, because I have different impairments to Tommy and to Danny. I'm a part-time wheelchair user and I walk with sticks. So my requirements are massively different to Tommy and to Danny. However, I think the overarching point is, and I think you summed it up very well there, Andy, is my point to make to this would be preparation is key. If you go into a project and go, we are going to make this accessible for all our deaf and disabled or all our people of colour talent, and we're going to do this from the start, you will make your life so much easier as a filmmaker if you build that in from day one than realising 6 months down the line, oh, we need to change everything because all of a sudden we're employing Dan and he's a part-time wheelchair user.
Yeah.
So preparation is key. One thing that I do in my work with Equity and the Deaf and Disabled Members Committee over here, like I said before, Equity is the British equivalent of SAG-AFTRA, is we are trying to encourage production companies to take up an access requirements form, or an access rider might be language that my American colleagues might understand more readily, in the fact that we can tell you what our access requirements are better than anybody else. I can tell you what my access requirements are, Tommy can tell you what his is, Danny can tell you what he needs, Andy can tell you what he needs, James can tell you what he needs better than anybody else. We can, it's a fact.
Yep.
So if you send us a bit of paper before we're on set asking what we need, we can tell you, and then there won't be any awkwardness.
Yeah, it all boils down to communication, right?
Mhm.
Communication is what this whole thing is about. That's why we're having this conversation. That's why we're doing these kinds of things. We're starting the conversation, which has never really been truly done in a way that it should have been. And I think like everything we're talking about, it all boils down to communication, you know, like talk these things out, explain these things, correct people, like keep an open dialogue. It's not that hard actually. You know,
No.
just like Andy said, if somebody cares, like you'll see that they care and you won't rip them to shreds. Like, you know, like and if someone does, it's just because they're overcompensating because they've been marginalized so hard and so harshly in the past. They're, you know, they're done and they're sick of it. So they come out in this big way and people don't understand why. It's because no one's been listening to them. You know, nobody's been listening to them. That's why they're so angry. Like that's why we had all these riots and protests happening, and they're going to continue to happen until every marginalized community is being listened to and actually truly heard.
And one other thing.
Go for it, Tommy.
Communication is key.
It is, without question. And you know, I think as well, it's a good thing right now to raise, and I'm sure Danny will agree with this, that you have to find the right method to communicate with the person you're wanting to communicate with. Some people do not want reams and reams of text. Some people will need a BSL or an ASL interpreter. Some people will prefer to have a phone conversation because that is more accessible to them. But it's about you as production crew and you as filmmakers, like we've just said, communicating with your talent. And the thing is, if you communicate with your talent as filmmakers, and I'm sure everybody in this room will back me up, if I ever say anything out of line, please feel free to jump in and give your side of things. But I think most of the talent in the room would agree with me that once you know you are supported and you have your access requirements met, whatever they may be, you can give your best work to a project.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they also might need some more writing as well.
Yeah. Some people might need smaller writing, bigger writing. It depends on what your access needs are. But you're perfectly right, Tommy. And I think, there is a wealth of deaf, disabled, and people of colour talent out there that has been found or is just not being used in the right way yet. Look at what we've got on this panel right now.
And
this is one panel.
Yes, we also need some more imaginative casting.
Yes.
Directors.
Yeah, imaginative directors as well. One thing I would say as a performer, and Andy, Danny, Tommy, you can all probably, and James as well, you can probably all back me up on this. If you're going to work with talent,
I have a question.
Oh, please.
I also want to say something as well. So I love the idea of having that. So for creation of TV shows or movies, for having deaf actors and having the crew learn ASL or BSL, just learn the basics to be able to communicate, to create that access environment, like how to go to the bathroom, how to sign to use the bathroom or restroom, not just some basic signs so that an interpreter does not have to be with me at all times. So having the entire crew learn something like that, basic signs, that will really grant a lot of accessibility.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great idea. Someone should create a quick sheet of just like simple things like back up, to your right, to your left, when you're working with the camera guy, like it doesn't take too much, like they say, hey, just move that way, or it's like this, whatever the sign is, they should just have a quick sheet in front of the whole crew so they know if they want to communicate with their actor. That's a great idea.
Oh yes, and also with gestures as well. That's very important to incorporate gestures. So I've had maybe a cameraman talk to me, and we would just use gestural signs like left and right, maybe using a thumb to point in the direction, so they don't have to use the manual finger-spelled alphabet, but they can use gestures, paper as well. But a lot of times the crew doesn't have pen and paper handy at the last minute or the spur of the moment. So some basic signs would really help.
See, and it's basic stuff like this. What about you, Andy? Because you come in at a different point of the process, and you're probably one of those people that can bed access and or at least trying to influence that conversation, if not have a direct access to it. Where do you think you could help with progressing that forward in terms of accessing in the roles that you have in acquisition, if at all, or people that you at least talk to?
Well, I think it's, at least from what I can do in my job, which is not production based, at least in acquisitions, I think it's more of a case of understanding that the market is changing as a direct result of the way that we watch film and TV being much more accessible and much more global. Everyone people that I speak with frequently talk about this sort of golden age of the theatrical model. But in my opinion, I don't think that golden age was really there, because if you're looking at it from the perspective of accessibility, if you want to go and see a film that's subtitled or a film that has audio description, you're going to have to go at an awkward time in the middle of the day where it's one showing and people might be at work or they might have other plans that it's slightly awkward and it's not particularly accommodating. And I think that the more that that streaming services are offering, which is a chance to watch content from the comfort of your own home, where hopefully things are fully accessible there, and you don't have to travel or pay to go to the movies, then that way of watching it will in turn change the way that stories are told and the way that they are produced. And if they're produced from the perspective of understanding that this is going to be shown to a much wider audience, where it's going to be fully accessible, so people watching this are going to be people with disabilities or people of color or LGBTQ+, then it has to be made from its inception with that in mind, and therefore the accessibilities in the production will absolutely show in the finished products. Because when you're watching it, you will see, as we've said, it wasn't about open communication to begin with. It's going to reflect, when you're watching the final film, you can see that the performances just aren't natural, that the representations aren't authentic, and so the more that we can establish the different ways of accessibility on our end, on exhibition and distribution, the more that will be reflected back to production as time goes on.
See, I love it when people.
One of the things I mentioned
Yes, Tommy.
is also believe in people like me when you are casting, because I think that people are scared, but that there shouldn't be. People have out of date ideas about our lives. We are real people living in the real world. We have real dreams and emotions. Let us show you what we can really do in life and in films. Writers need stories to tell. I have got plenty of ideas, like a hero who saves the world, or a sidekick in a comedy spy film, or a mischievous character in a comedy, adventure, or a fantasy, and a Romeo figure in a rom-com where things go wrong.
Well, I think that's a very valid point, Tommy, in the fact that especially in this panel, you've been a champion for deaf and disabled people and people of color playing roles that they're not normally perceived to play. So that we haven't yet seen on mass media anyway a disabled Romeo. Sadly, I'm probably too old these days, but we haven't seen a disabled Romeo yet. We haven't seen many disabled leads. Why couldn't there be a deaf sidekick to James Bond? Why couldn't there be a deaf James Bond? Let's go all out. Let's not, limit ourselves. Why couldn't there be a black James Bond, an Indian James Bond?
It should be.
That's so crazy. But the fact is,
or me.
Or you, indeed, Tommy.
Down syndrome, James Bond.
Exactly. The Down syndrome James Bond. But the fact is, as well, if you are a filmmaker, if you are a creator, which I'm hoping we have numerous of you watching this panel, I can only talk for the UK figures. I'm sorry, I'm not on board with the US figures. But the UK figures for disabled people under the definition of the United Nations is roughly about 1 in 5 people is a disabled person. And we have the spending power on average of about £249 billion, which I think is about $300 billion, give or take exchange rates, I think, a year. As a distributor, I'm sure, Andy, you want part of that £300 billion a year.
That would be nice. Then I could buy those for my book.
So, as a filmmaker, as well as being able to tell new stories, as well as being able to show new perspectives, as well as being able to employ writers and actors and creatives from different groups, imagine the financial gains if you do it properly. There is a business case for employing talent of color. There is a business case for employing deaf talent. There is a business case for employing talent with Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, and any other impairment or disability that comes to mind. There is a business case for it. Because if you see yourself represented on screen, guess what? You're more likely to part with your money. And if you want your film to be successful, you need people to part with their money. It's a business case.
Yeah.
And that some people might find that cynical, but once, you know, looking at people of color, and I'm sure, James, you can help me support this. Look at the effect Black Panther had for the Black community and cinema in general.
Completely across the board. It made what $1 billion worldwide, something that had never been done in a mostly Black casted film before. But it was time, right? It was time. The world wanted it and needed it and consumed it in a way that proved that those stories can be done and we can benefit from it across the board. Right, the Black communities ate it up because they were hungering for something that represented them represented us in a big beautiful light. You know, the kings and queens that we are. So yes, like Hollywood, I think they're just now starting to really see the benefit of sharing everyone's stories. If it's motivated by money, if that's how we have to start it, I'm fine with that, because then eventually it will seep into the psyche and the fabric of all the communities that blend together on a daily basis. And I think that's how we'll get at the systemic nature of this thing. You know, we'll force people to share and create the kinds of stories that represent all of us, and then eventually it will just become habitual. You know?
And that's the thing. And again, I think, you know, in terms of the deaf community is huge, Danny. Your views alone speak to that. You have over 15 million views across social media for your skits work. So your views alone speak to that. And I'm sure that, you know, you are deep within the deaf community, I know, and you've already won awards. So I'm sure you can speak to the fact that the deaf community want that representation also.
I agree. Yes, I agree with that. Yes.
So there's money to be made. There's money to be made. Andy, tell these people how they can make money. You're the distributor, the creator. Come on, tell these people they can make money.
Well, I have a quick, rich scheme that I'm going to tell you all now. But I think there is something to say that you know, it's interesting, like working in this line of work in acquisitions, and particularly going after stories that do focus on underrepresented communities. You see just how much content is already out there, and what in all the other lines of work that I've been in, and I've worked in journalism, I've worked in production, development, finance, and yet the work that I've seen that authentically represents disabilities and other underrepresented communities is not. I'm not seeing that on mainstream platforms, even though the work is out there. And so you then have to think that, okay, so the work is being created, but they're just not being given the right releasing or the right services to be, you know, to really reach to the mainstream. And I think that, you know, as the pandemic continues, then we're sort of pushed to find new ways of showing stories and telling stories. But what we're doing at Bohemia is we're actively, you know, pushing to find those stories and encouraging more companies to find authentic ways to tell stories that represent communities that haven't been shown enough on screen, and we will find ways to acquire existing projects and give them the releasing they deserve, working with grassroots organizations that really understand the sectors of the communities that they're a part of, and working with charities and giving a portion of our revenue back to them, because at the end of it all, we're all in this together. This business can only stay alive if we work together.
Yep.
And at some point, the business competitiveness has to give way to that, because otherwise it's just going to, there's just going to be the same marginalization that there has been for years. And now that people are becoming more aware of the way stories are put together and the way media operates through social media, there's no hiding from it anymore. There has to be a change there, and it should come from a place of wanting to bring people together, to encourage empathy. Roger Ebert said that cinema should be a tool for empathy, and it has to come from a place of real heart and soul in order for that to be reflected in the work that you show. And that's the only way things can stand the test of time.
See, he sums everything up so nicely.
Very flexible. It makes me sound smarter than I actually am.
Oh, there you go. See, but no, I think it boils down to that quote that we often use within the disability arts community, and it's happening more and more in conversations I'm having with BAFTA, with the BFI, and so on and so forth. Is nothing about us without us. And the fact is, you're never going to tell an authentic story about deaf people, disabled people, people of color, people with Down syndrome, people with physical impairments, unless you employ those people to tell the story. On whatever form that might be an actor, be a writer, be a producer. The more you employ those people, the more authentic your story is going to be. Because as much as acting is an industry for people to pretend to be other people and tell stories, lived experience is invaluable and cannot be replaced.
Yes. 1000%.
So I would say to any filmmakers watching this that want to make their sets more accessible and more rounded and have better representation, is employ deaf, disabled and people of color and people with Down syndrome and people with cerebral palsy and any disability you can imagine. Because by employing them, they will help you make all your work accessible, because they need it to be. They will help you make your work more inclusive because they need it to be. But do me a favor, as somebody that campaigns for this all the time, when you are employing those people, please make sure they are paid properly. Because do not take advantage of that lived experience. Use it and use it well, but pay for it. Pay for the quality of experience you are getting, the same way you would pay somebody that's been a producer for 20 years. The same way you would pay a director that's directed a Hollywood feature film. If they're bringing you that level of experience, pay them accordingly. It's as simple as that.
It's as simple as that. I totally agree. Right, when that whole thing happened in Hollywood, where the emails and the information, what was it, Sony, got out, and the real pay scales of actors, even high level actors, you saw the imbalance there. So it was like, okay, even the big boys, they see these imbalances too up there, women co-stars as opposed to their male leading co-stars, and the imbalance was huge. So if you even just take that to the other communities, marginalized communities, it gets even worse in those areas. So yeah, Dan, you're totally right. Let's make it equal across the board. Pay scale, representation, creation, everything behind the camera, inclusion in all its forms, completely.
Indeed. And I promise you guys, and please, Danny, Tommy, Andy, James, if you want to add to this, please do. But I promise you, as much as we've talked about in this last 54 minutes and 15 seconds as it stands, this isn't as scary as it seems. It starts with simply asking a question of, how am I going to make this project inclusive? How am I going to make this project accessible?
Okay. I might add one more thing.
Mhm.
They could just give us some good, really exciting stories, but not. It's not just about being vulnerable people.
Yeah. Exactly. Why isn't Tommy James Bond? Why am I not Romeo? I know there's probably reasons I'm not Romeo, but we won't go there.
Pushing for it. I'm pushing
Go.
for it.
I'm really bad at Shakespeare.
Brilliant. When I played Hamlet,
Indeed, Tommy has already played Hamlet, but has Tommy played Hamlet on Netflix? Has Tommy played Hamlet on CBS? Has Tommy played Hamlet in theatres all over the country? No, he hasn't.
I have done.
Sorry, Tommy?
I haven't played in the theatres,
Yes.
but Netflix would be next.
Exactly. See, Netflix is angling. Tommy's angling for Netflix to play Hamlet. Netflix, if you're watching, if you've not played, we're coming for you. No, we're not. But Netflix, you know, on the flip side, is a prime example of some of the business done right. Not that I'm singling out Netflix, but they are already starting to lead the way in some terms of representation with some of the work they have on their platform. And Amazon are out behind. So it's up to all the filmmakers, all the broadcasters to step up. I'm laying down a challenge here at the Portland Film Festival. Producers, filmmakers, step up.
The gauntlet has been thrown.
Give us good quality characters. Give us good representation. Nothing about us without us, because I promise you, it's not as scary as it seems.
And I might even quote an infamous speech from Hamlet himself.
Okay, go for it, Tommy.
To be or not to be. Well, that is the question. Whether it is nobody in the
It is indeed.
Stuff.
To be or not to be. And as filmmakers and as producers, you can make, applause to Tommy, you can make deaf and disabled talent be on our screens. You can do that. And the talent is there, and the talent is waiting, and the talent is coming for you. So make sure the deaf and disabled and the talent of colour is in your work. Simple as that. But we have about 2 minutes left, give or take, before we have to wrap this up. So because we are all performers and we're all in the creative industries, I'm going to come to each one of you individually and ask you, what are you doing now? What's coming next? What's going on in your creative lives? Tommy, what are you working on at the moment? If you're allowed to say, it might be secret, but have you got any good projects coming up?
Top secret. In a top secret location.
Top secret work in top secret locations. What about you, James? What have you got coming up?
So many things. But yeah, I'm currently working on a horror film that is going to be very, very inclusive. You know, this whole year has been really inspiring. As a creative, you take your cues from all things that you see in life and feel, and this year has involved all the feels. So I got inspired to start writing a horror film, and I hopefully will be shopping that around to get it some really great distribution.
Talk to Andy.
Yeah, I want to go deeper into our past, you know, into why things are the way they are, you know, because it just didn't happen, you know, like last week or last year or 2 years ago. It's been happening for hundreds of years, and I want to dive a little deeper into the systemic nature of all the pain that we're going through right now.
Sounds amazing. What about you, Andy? What have you got coming up at the moment? Or are they all secret projects on a slate we can't talk about?
No, we're releasing a whole bunch of new films next year. One of which I'm particularly excited about. It's called A Space in Time, which is about a family who have a condition whose children of which have a condition called Duchenne disease, which is a fatal muscle wasting disease. But it's a really, really heartwarming, candid depiction of the family. And I'm also taking my hand at producing. I'm producing a short film, which is going to be a ghost story told entirely through British Sign Language with deaf cast and behind the scenes as well. And that's going to be exec produced by Stephen Fry as well. And that's what we've got coming out next year.
Amazing. What about you, Danny? What have you got coming up?
Well, I'm auditioning. I'm doing a tape for a TV show, 2 tapes, one for this year and for next year. There are 2 big productions, but top secret, can't name names. But I'm very excited to be involved in these 2 television shows. And also at the same time, I'm studying in college. I'm working and studying and doing television. So it's both very challenging to do both and juggle both at the same time. But I do not like to be typecasted. I like to pursue different avenues regardless. So that's what I'm working on.
Amazing. And for those that are interested, myself, I'm auditioning for various top secret TV projects as well. Hopefully one of them will come off.
And one other thing that I'm doing is I'm writing an adventure story as well.
Brilliant. Writing an adventure story. Maybe that will get turned into a movie. Who knows? But everybody, we've slightly run over our hour, not by too much though, so I don't think they're going to moan at us. So I would just like the time to say thank you very much to the amazing Tommy Jessup. Thank you very much to James Ken Blackman.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much to Andy Cayley.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Danny Murphy. I have been Dan Edge. This has been your panel on the Portland Film Festival about how to make your film sets and stuff more accessible. I'm sure there are plenty of people you can talk to, and if you require anybody's contact details, I'm sure somebody more important than me will happily pass on messages. Thank you, everybody that's been watching. We hope you found it insightful and that it's been a great use of your time. Have a great rest of your day. Sleep well if you're in the UK. And hopefully we'll see you all in amazing projects very, very soon.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you and goodbye.